What's up and welcome to Idle Insights, a show where each week I, Treavor Bettis, talk to interesting people about idle champions and Dungeons and Dragons. And with me this week is returning guest Jerry Holkins. Hello!
Woo,
Yeah! I
All right,
need
now,
a soundboard. I'm telling you that we need
listen,
the cheers.
that's when you know you've leveled up as a host. When you got the thing and you can go like bonk or like whatever you want on there. I mean, my understanding is that they're customizable. So
Yeah, just as long as you don't go as far as the like old radio hosts. They're just doing it every other word.
well,
Then,
no,
then,
and,
then
and
you're
obviously,
abusing it.
and there are rude sounds
There are rude
that
sounds.
are unwelcome in a professional context. So
Indeed.
avoid
Well,
those.
Well, hello, Jerry. If there's people out there in the chat who don't know who you are you for those fine folks who may not
Gosh. Well, I mean, my name is Legion, essentially. Hopefully, minus a panoply of demons. But I am. I mean, I had to create an introduction just to include all of my nom de guerre, which
your
are like
titles and
yeah, exactly.
lands.
So I'm Jerry Holkins, and with my friend Mike Krahulik, we founded a webcomic called Penny Arcade before there was the term webcomic.
Yeah.
Before we didn't need it yet. Eventually we would come to need it. Although now the larvae in my house tend to call such things webtoons. I think after some of the more popular ones that are out there. But we also Mike and I also founded the Child's Play charity, which if you're interested in such things, has studiously and steadfastly shepherded donations in the tens of millions by now.
Heck yeah.
Trying to make the sort of situations that young people occasionally must endure more endurable. And as if that were not sufficient, we also co-founded the Penny Arcade Expo, which in its modern incarnation, that's only for the that's the if you know thing.
Yeah.
In its modern incarnation, I think people generally know it as PAX.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, I guess also. I mean,
you still got one more.
well, the reason that we know each other is because I also pretend to be a businessman inside Dungeons and Dragons here it is again.
Hey.
I also pretend to be a businessman inside Dungeons and Dragons in what I believe is the longest running live D&D. Some people use the term actual play. I've never really understood the distinction, or who came up with it, because they didn't ask me.
No opinions are given.
Yes, exactly. But yes, what may be the longest running, publicly played Dungeons and Dragons game, Acquisitions Incorporated.
Heck yeah.
So I think that I could go into a couple other things, I think, but that's going to cover the bulk of the lineage, I think.
Jerry, you are a busy man. Like, I mean, thank you for taking time to talk with me.
I was a long time ago. now it's just in the maintenance phase.
The maintenance phase. I like that. That's a good phase to be in.
It ain't bad.
Yeah.
Could be much worse.
Well, Jerry, last time you joined me, I did the icebreaker question of how'd you get into D&D, and so this time I want to ask you, who was your first D&D character?
Well, the issue is that the very first time I ever played Dungeons and Dragons, I was 6 years old.
Oh, wow.
And so I don't remember. I was playing with my aunts and uncles. So my father was the oldest of an incredible number of siblings. Like he was at the apex. What this meant is that even when I was 6 years old, his younger brothers and sisters were relatively close to me in age. So I mean, which is odd, but
I knew plenty of people like that when I was in elementary school.
I mean, I benefited substantially by that. And one of the things that's interesting is that it's like board games and role-playing games sort of being a subset of that. if you have that many kids in the house, like for them playing games, role-playing games, board games, like outside games, they had some really sophisticated ones that they had made up
Oh
somehow.
wow.
But I mean, that level of boredom and tension inside that mesh, you leads to some survival strategies, and one of those was the playing of games. And so I spent the night over there, and they sort of led me through it. I can still remember like some of the imagery from it. There was like a black slime that had like dripped down onto this sword. It was just like, I mean, I can picture it like it's a real thing, but I don't remember the name of my character, unfortunately. But I've played all kinds of jagoffs. The ones that I played the most were probably Scintilla from Dark Sun.
Oh.
That's probably the character I played the absolute most. I mean, I had characters in like eventually we had to start hiding that we were playing D&D and not other role-playing games, but I had characters in Planescape, Forgotten Realms, Dragonlance. Like I had lots and lots and lots, but I think Scintilla was probably when we really started getting into it. We couldn't avoid Dark Sun. Like Dark Sun seemed too cool. You know what I mean? Like because we've been playing other games basically just to keep from getting in trouble, at least with my parents. I mean, none of my friends' parents gave a shit, but they basically we were doing like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Cyberpunk.
Yeah,
like it was so crazy to see Cyberpunk come back, like from CD Projekt Red. Like that's how I grew up. We also played a lot of Robotech.
Oh, Robotech.
Most people in that era had like a GURPS phase, but we also played storyteller games like Vampire and Mage.
Dang, that's awesome.
But and I'm always glad. It's like if you tell somebody, it's like, yeah, Satanic Panic was actually real in my house. It's like, generally speaking, that's considered a negative thing, and certainly my mom and I have discussed it a lot right now, and she just mostly feels bad. She thought all that stuff because people she trusted told her, and it is what it is. It's a very complex thing, but we spent a lot of time in those other realms precisely because we couldn't play D&D. And I'm glad because I ask much harder questions of Dungeons and Dragons, and I interrogate that system a lot, precisely because I think that there's things that these other systems do much like in a better way. Like obviously D&D is the grandpappy, and it's being it's being shepherded by Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford into a place that really respects and recognizes its lineage. But systems can definitely guide gameplay and player experience, and there are systems that lend themselves to really novel modes of interpersonal interaction that D&D is not like all the way there for necessarily.
That's awesome. I mean, I did not know. I actually didn't know that you had played all of those games like back in the day. Like most times I've heard you talk, it's been about Dungeons and Dragons.
I had to. Oh yeah. And again, it's like, and then even in the modern era, there's other games that I really, really like. Like we've been playing Vampire the Masquerade, like literally with Jason Carl.
I saw that video pop up earlier on YouTube. I didn't know you guys had done that at PAX. Dude, I gotta watch that one later.
But watch that one if you're interested in Vampire. You want to see the way that we would do Vampire, like in like our Acquisitions Incorporated sort of approach. And Jasmine is in that game as well.
Oh,
in fact,
sweet.
That's how I know Jasmine is from that game.
Oh, okay.
She's super into crunch, super into rules. She's like a master dungeon master.
Oh yeah. I knew she was doing that.
Right, and so, but Vampire is one of her fascinations, and so she was in that mix as well.
That was the first thing I saw her in.
Exactly, right? And so, if you haven't seen Seattle by Night, I would watch that first.
Yeah.
And then grab this, because this sort of is like an epilogue and maybe the start of something new for stuff. So we shall see.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Jasmine, we're actually here today to talk about her character who just came to Idle Champions. I should say for the people out there in chat right now, this is a pre-recorded episode.
Oh.
You live in the world where Certainty is already in Idle Champions. You can
Don't ask me any questions in real time, because I won't be able to help you.
How do you unlock Certainty? Tell me.
What's the system? How many of these chests? I need a code.
But yeah, we wanted to talk about all aspects of Certainty because she's a very interesting character.
I think
And,
so.
yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah.
She
I mean,
is your
I
character's
really like
daughter.
her. I really like her a lot. And but also she represents a few different things. I mean, where do you want to start?
Well, let's start with the, in case there are folks who are just joining this, they've been out of the game for a little bit, they haven't heard about Certainty. Who is Certainty Drawn?
Certainty Dran is almost certainly the inheritrix of Acquisitions Incorporated. She has been trained and schooled for this purpose by her father, Omen Dran. Now, it should be said that there is a really sophisticated version of the relationship between Omen and Certainty. If you are not familiar with the C Team, which was the spin-off game of Dungeons and Dragons for Acquisitions Incorporated that I ran for, 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not familiar with that, it goes into a lot more detail. And so, if I say, hey, Omen is her dad, and that's sufficient. That's all you actually need to know. And certainly for the live games, that's all that comes up. But there is some really, really twisty lore underneath that relationship that I think is really cool, that we had a chance to come up with together. But
did she show up in C Team?
she did.
Oh, okay. See, that is unfortunately the void in my knowledge of Ack Inc. It was during a time where I wasn't getting to watch these shows.
Well,
Um,
and this is the thing, is like there's lots and lots of these games now,
mhm.
and it's like if you basically need to set aside, the like a feature film length or longer each week to actually like maintain and keep up.
Yeah.
But if you ever need something else, the C Team was essentially an opportunity for me to basically dive really, really deep into a couple specific things about AI, specifically Omen Dran's history, his family history with his sisters and his mother. A lot of that show is really about Omen's family,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it's like the C Team has a special relationship with Omen that is revealed like inside that thing, because the C Team, ostensibly, and it was actually Mike Krahulik, my best friend, that gave me the name for it, because it was originally going to be the B Team,
Mm-hmm.
like, which has a sort of jokey aspect to it,
Yeah.
right? But it's even worse if it's the C Team. But of course, these designations mean something very specific.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't like grades. Team N isn't that much worse. They're just code names and designations. But they came into contact with her with Certainty as essentially the secretarian of the entire organization. So she was basically the one that knows all the information that's coming in from every remote franchise. So she is sort of like the nexus point inside the organization that knows everything. And so she builds a relationship with a couple key members. And over the course of the C Team, eventually she has to make very sophisticated maneuvers and plays to protect the company, and then also to protect the C Team themselves. So
That's awesome.
it's like, but there's a lot of things about Certainty that I never defined, precisely because I wanted to be able to play with Certainty at the table, and I needed to find somebody who I trusted enough to do that.
Interesting.
And obviously it was Jasmine.
So you had this character in C Team show up, and
Yeah.
and you were playing you were role playing Certainty.
Yeah, she's an NPC basically. Yeah.
Oh, that's so fascinating. And so I've never thought about having to cast an NPC. That is
Right. There's a lot about
wild.
Certainty that I think is really sort of unique and interesting, and that's one of them. But you know how it is inside D&D, like the NPCs that you make, that's where people really get dialed in.
Oh,
like
yeah.
players, and then these days viewers as well, they get super dialed into characters that it's not your intention that they even really form any kind of relationship with.
Yep.
And it's a similar thing in some ways with Certainty, although just because she's the daughter and has this specific goal and purpose, she was always going to be a little bit. She was always going to have a little bit greater destiny than a teen werewolf that you introduce in one episode that ends up becoming a major character for 5 years. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what was that conversation like with Jasmine of like, hey, I have this character that I want you to play? Like, how did that go?
Yeah. Well, we had already met Jasmine from Seattle by Night. And so, which is, our Vampire the Masquerade thing. We were already discussing that. And so because I knew her from that, I just don't like, this is like a huge ask.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy to even consider it, let alone to make the offer, let alone to accept it. So yeah, this is an NPC that is my character's daughter, except I'm an adult man and you are an adult woman. And then we're going to be playing this on stage. Like, there's a reason that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, it's weird.
Yeah.
But it works in our game. And I think that it's actually sort of become the emotional core of the game these days. Because, yeah, like, we're both adults, but I'm a million times older than Jasmine. Right? I'm a million times older than Jasmine. And so it's not, it just seems like there's a million ways that it could go wrong.
But I think that like kind of just really shows like you all are professionals at this. Like
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's the
I've
thing.
been doing it again. I've been doing it for about as long as it can be done. So
yeah, and
I Mike.
And I think that like should show people like because there are people who is like, oh, it's not hard to play D&D in front of a camera. I hold you and Jasmine's situation as like evidence of like, no, like I want to see just Joe Schmo do this, like,
No, it's wild, and we've actually discussed it on multiple occasions, just because it is so novel and odd, and we've been trying to figure out why it works. And I think that she, and then she'll say something similar. I think when you end up, when you talk to Jasmine, but she has a great relationship with her dad, and so what we've talked about, we've actually talked about her dad a lot, and she has a very good dad voice when she tells stories about her dad. Like, her dad voice is like dialed in. And I have 2 daughters, so I mean, I just in terms of like the relationship, like what it would mean. And also, like, having kids is very silly. Like, a lot of the times it's just silly. The stuff that happens in a house is nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And so we already sort of have a model for a functioning mode that works. And we have those, when we have those things now as adults. And so it's easy to sort of slide into that thing. But nowadays, like, if you saw the episode that was at PAX West, that sort of leads into the Acquisitions Incorporated Series 2 that we were honored to be able to fund on Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
We really, like, we'll say the same thing a lot. Like,
I was watching it yesterday. There was a joke that both of you said at the same time.
And it was fast.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing about Jasmine too, is that that's the skill that Mike and I really, really respect, because we do, Mike and I write all the time.
Yeah.
Like, every week we're writing a ton of stuff, and people who can react as fast and as well as Jasmine are quite rare. Are quite rare. I mean, there's people who can do it fast, and there's people who can do it well. But if you can actually like hit a joke that feels written in real time, like, that's, you want to work with that person.
Heck yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, Jasmine does an incredible job of playing Certainty. I mean, the moments that you two have done on stage as that father-daughter duo have just been incredible to watch.
It's rare. Again, it's just rare and weird.
Yeah, yeah. But you brought up Series 2, which is premiered
in fact, it's available now for mortals to absorb.
Yes. I mean, pulling the curtain back, it's been live for us for like less than an hour and a half. Like this is fresh. It's here. And yeah, you had that successful Kickstarter campaign, which you were on last time talking about. And we were talking before we started recording the PAX episode that went up just a little while ago. That one is integral to this series.
Yeah, consider it. It's essentially like a bookend.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the first bookend, and then you have the 10-volume, encyclopedia that is the show itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then right on the other side, is going to be the live game at PAX Unplugged,
That's wild.
which is basically going to be the live finale, grand opening, grand closing, basically.
Ooh.
So, and it's good. There's some stuff. There is some crazy stuff that happens in this, and it's sort of hinted at in some of the videos, but essentially, I won't say anything. It's some of the language around the trailer and stuff like that sort of gets into the theme that is in there, but it'd be more fun just to go see it.
Well, and the wild thing about the trailer that caught me off guard is how much the cast rotates. Like I didn't expect. I just kind of expect that this would be the same group of people around the same table every week. But like I saw Xavier Woods in there. Like I saw Jeremy behind the screen. Like you're swapping people around.
Oh yeah. So Xavier, he's always going to be. Whenever we can have him in AI, like he's just our buddy now. He's just fun to hang out with, and so anytime we can pull him in. But I mean, he is also like a wrestler.
Yeah.
And
he's a busy man.
He's touring all the time, and his star is absolutely rising in that.
Oh yeah,
in that context, right? He's murdering it, and so, but yeah, and so it's like that's even like why he is not, or like how he is not in the first two episodes was actually introduced on stage, and you can see more of that. You can see more of that in the first official episode.
I do like that he does great. Have a mini though.
Yes, exactly. But Jeremy and Chris co-DM the series. They basically trade off episode for episode, and so it starts with Chris and ends with Jeremy. Like it's God, and that last episode is something else. So there's a lot of really old school. Like I said, these two are from back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of really old school D&D in this thing, and also it's like having moved into Greyhawk, that's where a lot of these concepts, like that's the old magic of D&D, like all these spellcasters that spells are named after they're from there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it was a wild experience that I got to having it, because like when I first started playing 4th edition, like I did my own homebrew thing and everything like that.
For sure.
And when you all though went to the Forgotten Realms in that like playtest area of AC Inc., like it was wild for me because like I'd never heard those names before. Like I hadn't heard Waterdeep and Neverwinter and stuff like that. And so that actually encouraged me to look more into it and then start writing my games in the Forgotten Realms. And now hearing I have no experience with Greyhawk, and so hearing these things and these locations, everything, it's making me be like, oh, I want to learn about this place now.
Well, and it's really old and really, really weird.
Yeah.
It's like Chris said when he was introducing the game at West, where it really is this really is the old stuff, and there's
like this is where the cliches come from. Like I like that little speech.
And there's some classic dungeon crawler stuff in the campaign that we play in the series as well, like some really old school stuff, awesome classic monsters, but also just conceits in dungeon levels and things like that. It's all in there. You're gonna have a great time.
Heck yeah. Well, there was something that came up in under the 5-minute mark of this episode that I wanted to talk to you about, because Omen is now a cleric of Asmodeus.
That's true,
and like that's
been a long time coming, actually.
Yeah, and that was something that I just wanted to talk to you about real quick. Like, was that something that was planned, or did that genuinely like happen at the table in front of everyone?
Oh, it happened. Oh, yeah. There's none of that stuff is planned. Well, it's not planned by us. The actual campaign that is a co-creation of Jeremy and Chris, right?
So they literally are just like, we'll see if Jerry goes along with
Well, over
Asmodeus.
the years, like
Oh.
Omen started having his dark turn a few years ago in Ravnica.
Oh.
And so that is something that is I specifically started moving in that, like moving in a, because he is a war priest, right? And he like swings around a two-handed maul. Like he's actually like he's a brutal combatant. And I wanted that to show up in other parts, like the cruelty of it. And so I started putting a little bit more and a little bit more until the dungeon masters started to see how much I was putting out, and then they started to tempt me with stuff.
Oh, that's so
and
good.
so before I actually, like, you know, got rid of Timora and moved into more of an Asmodeus direction, right? I had already essentially exchanged something like 27% of my soul, and it was just to buy it. It was just to buy more time, right? I mean, yeah. It started out small.
That's how it always does.
And then he's like, hey, listen. So I'm gonna this percentage. I'm also gonna put a new intern in Acquisitions Incorporated, and there's this little munchkin guy that he wanted to be a part of, like, the game, but that Omen is high enough level that he can just banish entities like that. And so anytime he would try to put this character in the game, I would banish them. I just kick him out. Like, he kept wanting it to be a thing, and I was like, it's never going to be a thing. I'm never going to give that up. He can't just be hanging around here. Yeah. And so, but essentially it came to a head where we were completely. His back was completely against the wall. And the choice was between serving Asmodeus not just because of whims or something that I wanted to do that happened to line up with Asmodeus, but the choice was really between serving Asmodeus or him approaching Certainty and making Certainty the object of his wicked design. And so obviously Omen can't do that. Like, that's not going to happen. Yeah. Right. And so we had to make that switch over. And it's just like, but that ends up being like, that shift and switch, that ends up being a big part of this campaign. Like, if you find that change, if you find that interesting, oh yeah, you are in for a treat, because that's basically, like, that gets way down to the core of what the series is about, is that distinction and what it means, like what it means to do that. Oh yeah, I'm so excited. The later episodes of this series are so good. It's like, we have to start at the beginning. Yeah. But where these concepts go is so good. And like, it's got to be like a little hard, because like y'all have, for you, this story has happened and you're now waiting like for that finale, for that live show to tie it all up. Absolutely. Like, absolutely. Boy. But I mean, but where we get to in that last episode, like, all the things that have been revealed up to that point are so, I think I cried twice. Wow. Over the course of this campaign. Have you ever cried during an Ac Inc. game? I don't think so. Wow. I think my eyes have stung. Yeah. There's a couple, there's two distinct moments in this that are just like heartrending moments. Dang. And it's inside what is ostensibly a comedy game. But I mean, but I think that's the trick. Yeah. That's the trick of AI, is that we can reel you in with this silly shit. And then when the time comes where, Omen Dran, who has been in this campaign from the beginning, is like literally sells his soul to the devil, or it's because the default gear is in this silly space the gut punches just come out of nowhere, and it's just you're not necessarily ready for you're not ready for it to happen. And so that's, to my mind, it's that that look over here trick of being able to switch the genre from time to time that I think makes it a really effective mode of storytelling.
Heck yeah. Well, I will make a note to have a box of tissues nearby during those final episodes.
Take a look. Yeah. Early on, it's going to be good times.
Yeah.
Later on, there's more.
It gets darker. I like that. That's good. Yeah. That's awesome. One of the other things I want to talk about the show, though, was I mean, just the production of all the set, the minis,
I was just gonna say, I mean, this is all new for everybody else now, right?
Yeah.
I already knew about it. I already knew about that. I mean, that's,
yeah.
Let's discuss new topics.
I would, but those are called spoilers.
I filmed that months ago. No. It took us a week, 2 episodes a day.
Wow.
And then you'll see that set, but the set that you see there, it may have growth potential.
Ooh.
So consider.
Okay.
Consider.
Okay. And the terrain that I heard during the live show, that was Dwarven Forge. Are all these going to be Dwarven Forge?
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing, is that Mike and I had gotten into Dwarven Forge back in the day when they were large. They were like ceramics. Like they were pretty significant, pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
Modern day Dwarven Forge, and you can take these pieces and throw them in a box.
Oh yeah. Oh, I literally have a box. Their first Kickstarter campaign. My friends and I went all in on it.
Yeah, with the new
they're incredible.
With the new molds and stuff.
Yeah.
It's super, super good. But what was surprising to me, and obviously they're a sponsor, so I mean, you should know this while I'm saying this. Like it's important to have that information out there. But
totally fair and I respect it.
I do think that you will be impressed at how organic some of these environments can be, especially when you get into the second one.
Okay.
Like there's some swampy type environments. Like I was startled at how organic these things could be, even though it's made from tiles.
Mm-hmm. Well, the forest set that Chris brought out during the live game was stunning. Like I was like, I want to play an encounter. Can we do an encounter? I want to do an encounter.
Yeah, they're on some other stuff, and it's like they have all kinds of cool, like they have all the stuff that you want, like the LEDs and things like that. But when they can execute the really natural, organic forest or marsh, swamp, like obviously they can do dungeons super well.
Mm-hmm.
But like there at the end, it's like we had 2 different. We used to have the dioramas made, and they was definitely very cool. But it's like, with Dwarven Forge, we can actually do like 2 dioramas a game. I didn't even know there was a second diorama. That place, that with the baby goblins and stuff.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean that was a great. Like I didn't know there was a whole second one, but again, like that doesn't really look like. It doesn't look like it's parted out too much. It doesn't. Mm-hmm. It's very granular and organic looking for something that's made from tiles. I was very, very impressed with that. And they've been super fun. It's like they were just, because I was talking to them after the show backstage, and it's just like, yeah, you guys did a really, really good job. But they're super humble and cool. And, they talk, Dwarven Forge talks directly to Jeremy and Chris.
Oh.
Because we don't know that stuff. Mm-hmm. Like players in Acquisitions Incorporated, we never know any stuff. All the planning and all the story stuff, I mean, Ryan knows some things and Dwarven Forge knows some things. Mm-hmm. But we don't actually know any of that stuff. I didn't even know there was a second diorama. But they did all the dioramas, and so you're going to see a new diorama. Every episode of the show has a unique...
that's so cool.
Has a unique diorama, because it's very... like this season is very puzzly. Mm. That's actually going to be something that's really fun, I think, for people. So have you ever seen Saw?
Oh yeah.
So the idea of Saw, obviously, there's aspects of it that are unpleasant. I mean, I think we would all like to remain contiguous.
Yes.
So there's aspects of Saw that frankly, we don't want.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they are puzzles, and so it's like when you're watching it, you're always sort of thinking how you would do it, and all the levels. There's essentially like a puzzle. Each level of the game is like a puzzle. And so while you're watching, it has that sort of like meta narrative, or maybe Inception. like,
Mm.
or Memento.
Okay.
Movies
Okay.
that sort of have like they're
Yeah.
interactive
Yeah.
insofar as like you're projecting yourself into that space trying to figure out how you would solve some of these problems. And the season is basically like a sequence of rich environmental puzzles that have narrative and inter-party heft. Like it's every episode is going to have a little puzzle for you to play over. It's fun.
Oh, I'm excited. That's gonna be so cool. Um, but one of the other
Yeah.
things though I noticed was the first episode's got an hour runtime. Is that about the size of each episode?
No.
Oh, really?
No, no, no. This is just the intro.
Oh,
This is
okay.
just the intro. I would say that literally every episode after this is going to be much longer.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I know some shows have done the hour length for series and stuff like that, and I've actually enjoyed those pretty well. But I'm not gonna lie, hearing that there's more acting,
No,
I'm in.
I would be shocked if any of the other episodes on some of these we were running long. I would be shocked if any of the other episodes are this length.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
obviously, in terms of editing, like I'm not there in the
Yeah,
editing.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not like watching dailies and stuff. I just know that when we played that first game, it was the outlier of the entire week of filming. Everything else everything else goes much harder
Okay.
from then
Okay.
on. So yeah. If you be thinking more feature length.
This is just a taste.
Yeah, exactly. This is just the intro, and then every week you'll have another one. So
That's cool. And so 10 weeks all the way through, and then we got a live show at the
yeah,
end of
I
that.
mean, essentially Acquisitions. Thanks to the Kickstarter, Acquisitions Incorporated is a weekly show,
That's so cool.
and it's three solid months of programming.
I remember just waiting like a week or so for like a 20-30 minute episode on the WotC feed, and,
Oh,
now I'm
yeah.
like, oh, I get them weekly now and they're longer. Yes.
Oh well, and it's not just that. I mean, not only is it not only are they going to be longer, but they have like the production on these is sort of bonkers. Like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
all kinds of weirdo shit in there that to tantalize, essentially,
Yeah.
to
So,
delight.
I wanted to ask, we talked about the live shows a couple times here. I just wanted to ask, do you have a favorite moment from a live show? I know you all have done so many of them, but is there any of them that like stand out?
Let's see. Being able to be in a battle with Driss Do'Urden was pretty sweet.
With Chris doing an incredible voice.
Yeah, right? It's really funny. That was good when AFL burned up in the acid,
Oh my god.
and we had to go get AFL from the goo in hell.
Jerry, I have this vivid memory. The first time I listened to that, I was a parking lot attendant, and I was laughing so hard during it. I hung out with a friend afterwards. I'm like, you have zero context for this, but you need to hear this scene. And I just started it right there. And it is one of my favorite things ever.
Oh,
the
man.
way you all handled that.
No, that was wild. There's lots of really cool. There's lots of really cool moments
Mm-hmm.
that have happened over the years. But one of the more recent ones is so Omen. There's something called the vital employee clause that allows him. He interprets it as broadly as possible,
Mhm.
but essentially it means that the corporation is within its rights to maintain access to the services of a vital employee. And the way that Omen has interpreted that is by magical cloning.
Yeah.
And so he had made a clone of Jim because he loves Jim, but also because he needs Jim, right? And
Mhm.
so it's for a while that was a big part of the episode. And we also in terms of favorite episodes, I mean, we have to say that Wizard Unknown, the PUBG Dungeons and Dragons
Oh my
spinoff
God.
with on-stage microtransactions
I forgot about that. Oh my god, the loot getting handed out and everything. That was incredible.
Yeah, I mean that was wild. There was like a rock that looks kind of like a dog. I think is something that it's crazy.
Yeah.
But so that was cool. But I did have to like outsmart a devil to send this clone of Jim, because essentially it was going to be the actual Jim that ends up being sent to hell for some crime, something. And I was able, it was like a 26. My roll was a 26, trying to figure out the legal loophole to be able to send the clone instead. And it was it was just an awesome scene. It's just one of those things that like dice can create so many interesting aspects to those games. Like there's role-playing games that don't really use dice or that devalue dice, or you know what I mean? Try not to make the game about dice. Try to make it, more about like the specific interactions. But I mean, being able to react to these, numeric tragedies, and how they can, and just how they can surprise players and surprise the people running the game.
Yeah. I that's one aspect that I just love of the game, is just like failure can be cool. Failure can lead to some of the most interesting plot, devices you didn't even think of.
Well, absolutely. And we were talking about other systems before, and how the systems can sort of guide how people interact with the story. And one of the reasons, like Torchbearer is, I think, my favorite. Gloomhaven RPG is quite good too.
Oh, I haven't gotten to try that one yet.
You want to pay attention to that.
Okay.
That could have been fine, and it's actually amazing.
Really? Okay.
Oh yeah, and the character progression, it is so smooth, so clean. God, it's good, man. It's really good. But Torchbearer is essentially an inheritor, like Mouse Guard, of the Burning Wheel system. And
okay.
Burning Wheel is very, very powerful, and what it tries to do is emphasize that the group actually has to fight as a group. And it doesn't do that with suggestions or buffs, right? It says that when you enter into a conflict, and it uses the same mechanical system for any type of conflict. So it can be a debate, a mass battle, war, a fight in a catacomb. The same dice system manages all of it. And so you begin every conflict by generating your resolve. And so it's like the party has hit points. Not individual people. And it's not even set. It's based on what you generate at the beginning. So everybody has an off day, right? and that's modeled in this system. And so when you're acting, you're essentially all taking turns taking like the lead action. So you're the one that rolls the dice, but your friends are helping you. They're giving you extra dice. And then when you lose, the party loses or the party succeeds, but you can also succeed and still not get everything you want. And you can fail, but try to create the preconditions for success in the future. So, I mean, that's a really, really cool system when it comes to saying, hey, we can't actually be an atomized group. We can't be a bunch of individual models. Like, we are all doing one thing. It's a very, very cool system.
I can
mess around with it.
Picture that book. I've seen it at my local game store. You may have just sold me on that.
Get your mitts on it. And there's a new version. There's a second edition of Torchbearer that is just incredible.
Well, the way you're talking about that, though, with like the narrative decision stuff, like it reminded me of another game that you all have done on stage, which was the Star Wars RPG, the Fantasy Flight one.
The Genesis, like the system underneath that.
So good.
It's like divination.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You're literally like, you're just getting this handful of dice and like, what does it tell me?
Yeah, and you're interpreting it, and it allows you to fail forward.
Yeah.
In lots of cool ways, and try to set things up for other players. Like, it's an amazing dice system. That game we had a chance to do that down in Oz, and it was a blast. We did Acquisitions Incorporated essentially in the Outer Rim. It was a blast.
Yeah. That was a fun episode. It was interesting seeing the interpretations of Ack Inc. into the Star Wars universe.
Yes, yes, I like this. I like Space Pirate Omen. I think that actually works really well.
Well, we got Spelljammer now, so
Yeah,
that could still be a thing.
no, it's true. It's true. We don't. We can have our space cake and eat it too. We can have two space cakes.
Two space cakes.
Why not?
Well, so earlier you were, you're saying like, oh, that's done for me and everything like that. And obviously you can't spoil things or anything like that. But I did want to ask the question: is there anything you haven't gotten to do with Ack Inc. yet that you would still love to make happen?
Gosh. Well, I mean, I also really enjoy the Ack Inc. that we do in Oz, the Call of Cthulhu, like the horror.
Those, oh my god,
the horror
shows
acting
are
is
so good.
really good. I think really good. And if you like that, there's going to be more of that for you as well.
Oh, sweet.
But honestly, like the one that I really want to put together is just because I grew up with it, and so it would be a really fun, like it would just be a nice thing to do for my younger iteration, asynchronously, is Cyberpunk.
Ooh.
Right? Cyberpunk,
Ooh.
very, very cool stuff. Like in terms of like the story stuff, it didn't all, like the new game didn't all hit for me.
Mm-hmm.
But technically speaking, it's actually in a different era than the one that I played.
Yep.
Like that's moving forward from 2020, right? Yep. And so a lot has changed. Like the net works in a different way. But I think that Acquisitions Incorporated, like,
no, would it be one of the evil?
The Corpo Omen, who is essentially trying to set up his own thing, but runs a street level team of characters, and like Jim Dark Magic as a net runner or as a rocker boy.
That's right? Perfect.
Like there's a million ways we could put something like that together.
That would be cool as heck. Yeah, no, it's true. Cyberpunk would be a really interesting way to see Acquisitions go.
Right, and they are local. I mean, Artel Sorian, Pondsmith, all them. I mean, they're from where I'm from, so it's not impossible.
No, not out of the question. So I it's one of those too far in the future things, but we're getting towards the end of the episode here. Again, it flew by.
It happened again.
It happened again. You and I were talking, and then 50 minutes passed.
It's the easiest hour in radio.
After these 10 episodes, after the live show, is there any hint for folks out there of what might be coming down the line?
For Ack Inc?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, I think the next big Ack Inc thing that's in that continuum was something else. It isn't our internal project, but I've done a ton of work on it. Is Clank Legacy 2.
Oh.
So people actually really enjoyed, like there are people who think that Clank Legacy, which is an Acquisitions Incorporated board game based on the classic Clank system, right?
Mm-hmm.
It puts some sort of cooperative aspects in there. The sequel goes even harder on all that stuff. Really distinct individual character choices and deck building.
That's so cool.
But that got kickstarted earlier this year, and that should be coming out next year as well. So there's going to be a few cool collabs, and then like I say, there's a few other settings that we'd love to do stuff in, and hopefully we can put some of those together.
Well, I am excited to see all of those. Clank, I loved going into my local game store and seeing Jim and Omen little figurines. On the shelves and everything.
Because they had the two figurine sets that had custom stuff that you could essentially play those in the game. And then Clank Legacy 2 is gonna have a lot of the same stuff. I mean, but it's really dialed into specific characters and specific backgrounds. So it wants to give you a little bit more of a role to manifest inside the world. They were very, very ambitious with this one. I think it's going to be great.
Heck yeah. Well, I'm excited to see that and everything else y'all are going to do over at Penny Arcade and Acquisition Incorporated. But Jerry, thank you so much for taking time today to talk
Oh,
with me. This is an absolute blast.
anytime. Again, like as soon as I connected to the Zoom and I saw it was you, I'm like, well, this is going to be very easy.
You
like
are
this
too
is not gonna
kind.
this is not gonna be hard times for anybody.
You
It's
are
gonna be fun.
far,
So,
far
so,
too
so what are
kind.
you doing over there these days?
Oh,
Aside from talking to me, because last time we talked, you had just ascended.
Yes, I have ascended. I'm still doing the writing. I'm finishing the Xerixis adventure that we're doing right now, and working on something that people don't know about yet.
Little something tasty,
Yeah,
something zesty.
yeah. But
All
I
right.
was also getting to write some flavor text for some cool acquisition characters and Certainy Dran. I never thought that all of the listening to all those podcasts would come in handy for a paid job
no,
one day.
and I gotta say, so if that was your stuff, I mean, I made some edits as you saw. There's a couple things, and it only had to do with tonal things or experience that I have with the specific character.
Jerry,
But
I got notes back for you. I'm just like, I just got notes back on my writing from Jerry Holkins. Like,
Yeah,
no, that was enough for me. Like, you do whatever you want.
but I gotta say, like, it only required like the lightest touch. Like the work that came over to us was very, very good. I don't like shit. You ever understand, like, I'm super picky about this stuff, and what came over was solid. It was really, really good.
Thank you.
So yeah, I mean, my hope. I mean, maybe there'll be some way for us to mess around in the future. Like, I mean, it's not completely up to like you and I. Obviously,
there are powers that be. Yes,
but I bet good. Back in the day, in earlier C Team eras, like there was like Omen missions and stuff like that. Just as fun seasonal. Like it was a fun seasonal collab and new things for players to do. It might be fun to see. It might be fun to see exactly what could be done with a story or a meta story. But it'd be fun to collab on.
Yeah. Well, chat, keep an eye out for that. Who knows?
Let's talk about
see
it.
What happens.
Let's taco about it.
Let's taco about it. Well, Jerry, if people want to find you and what you do on the interwebs, where could they do so?
Oh, it's very, very easy. If you want to find Acquisitions Incorporated content, including the C Team and an archive of episodes going back a bit, you can go to acq-inc-inc.com. You can check out the delightful old school website that our designers put together. Of course, twitch.tv/Penny Arcade. Doing lots of gaming stuff, but also our brewing show on Tuesdays. We're messing around with some BattleTech. We have a Black Remnant show that is essentially like a 50-50 role-playing wargaming excursion. That is a lot of fun. Thursdays is more like traditional wargaming, but there's a lot of variety streaming and stuff that happens on the channel broadly. And then, of course, penny-arcade.com for your industry comment and comical needs.
And of course, you can check out Acquisitions Incorporated Season 2 or Series 2 right now on YouTube.
Penny Arcade TV.
Yep.
Wherever YouTubes are sold.
Yep. And you can also unlock Certainy Dran in Idle Champions right now. We're in the I guess this is the show's going up the first week. So yeah, you still have
enjoy.
Time to
it's fresh.
Yeah. It's fresh. It's here. It's new. And speaking of fresh, I've been thinking to say it so many times. Show off that cool tattoo you got there.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Let me get up here.
Look, chat. Look at that. That's so cool.
Oh yeah, it took a minute. And in fact, if you go back through the archive, I think it might be on the Twitch archive. Like I actually got that whole tattoo was done live on stream.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, it was a blast. That's and this is from our friend Tony Touch. If you like what you see here, and you like something that has like a really novel color gradient, very painterly tattoo style. Tony Touch, he actually just rolled through town. Mike got a brand new one on his calf. But no, he's amazing. We're gonna try to see if we can get him back out here again soon.
That's badass. So badass. All right. Well, we got to get out of here for Dev Insights immediately after this. Jerry, again, thank you so much for talking with me today. Always a blast. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of Idle Insights. So until next week, take care of yourself.